Everyone has heard the legend of Pandora's box, but what actually happened after she opened it? In Greek mythology, Pandora was the first woman ever born, crafted by the gods as retribution for mankind. She was given a sealed jar, never to be opened, but out of curiosity, she did, and unleashed all the evils of the world into the world. But since they couldn't punish him directly, they decided to trick him instead. They made Pandora, meaning all gifted. Then they gave her a beautifully crafted jar, telling her not to open it under any circumstances. However, there's another way to look at it. Maybe Pandora's actions didn't unleash evil into the world, but revealed it. Perhaps mankind was always going to suffer, but hope gives us the power to overcome. She was set up by the gods, especially Zeus, who wanted to perform a cosmic test on humanity. He told her that if she ate it, she would become like God, knowing good and evil. Why are we so curious about things that we're not supposed to know? Why do we peer into places that we shouldn't? You're told that inside the jar is the key to the universe, the answer to life, the meaning of everything. If she hadn't opened the jar, then all the evils of the world would still be trapped inside, and only the good things would be out in the world. Also, let us know in the comments section what you think was really inside Pandora's box. Do you think it was demons, souls, or something else? Now you need to watch what really happened to Prometheus, or have a look at this other video instead. Life would be perfect, or at least peaceful. But eventually someone would come along who was curious enough to open the jar. Maybe it was meant to be Pandora, though, to teach humanity an important lesson about temptation, free will, and divine consequence. You're also told that you mustn't look inside the jar. What would you do? Most people would resist the urge, but some would simply have to know. Pandora was like that. She couldn't resist the temptation, and when she opened the jar, she unleashed all the evils of the world. Why do we meddle in matters that are beyond our understanding? Curiosity killed the cat, but perhaps it also released evil into the world. Pandora probably had no idea what she was unleashing, but she was willing to risk it all to satisfy her burning curiosity. So like Pandora, Eve was given a choice, but she was also set up for failure. These stories were written thousands of years ago, but their themes are still relevant today. We are still warned about the dangers of knowledge and the consequences of disobedience. He knew that Pandora would open the jar, just as he knew that Prometheus would steal fire. This shows that free will is an illusion, and we are nothing more than pawns in a greater game controlled by fate. Others say that Zeus was simply punishing Prometheus for going against the gods. Stealing fire and giving it to humans was a grave offense, as it gave mortals power that they weren't supposed to have. Fire represents knowledge and enlightenment, and Zeus wanted to remind humanity that knowledge is dangerous and should be revered. This is backed up by the original wording of the myth. The word for jar in Greek was pithos, which means a large vessel used for storing grain. Pithos can also refer to the soul or psyche, the part of us that separates humans from other animals. The mistranslation of pithos as box occurred during the Renaissance, presumably because people thought the myth was referring to a literal chest, which led to the popular image of Pandora standing over an open wooden box. For example, some scholars say that Pandora didn't actually open the jar, but merely removed its lid to take a peek inside. Thus, it was never truly closed. If this is true, then everything bad in the world has always been here. Humans aren't doomed to suffer, but can choose to embrace the beauty of life despite the darkness all around us. Zeus then tricked Prometheus into copulating with Pandora, thereby making her the first woman. He also bestowed upon her the gift of kratos, meaning strength, which could have been physical strength or more likely a general sense of empowerment. The jar was the human psyche, which contained both light and darkness. Evil and good are relative terms anyway. What is evil for one person might be good for another. For example, war is hell for those fighting on the front line, but it's great for someone who profits from selling weapons. So it's hard to argue that all the things that left Pandora's jar were truly evil. The only universally evil thing was death, which is sad but unavoidable. We are all mortal and will die someday. That is a universal truth, but it doesn't mean that life is meaningless. In fact, the brevity of life makes it all the more precious, and we should cherish every moment while we have it. So what exactly were these evils? Was it souls of the damned, horde of demons, Or something else entirely? Well, that depends who you ask. To find out, we must look at the contents. The first thing that came out was pain, and not just physical pain. This included mental anguish, too, like grief, despair, remorse, heartache, and torment. It was also the source of human suffering and hardship, such as poverty, famine, and pestilence. Another evil that flew out was sickness, both mental and physical. So disease and madness left Pandora's jar. Next was greed, which is what caused men to covet the possessions of others and thus started warfare. Next was deceit and lies, which are ultimately responsible for much of the strife in the world. And finally, death itself emerged from Pandora's jar. It took many forms: old age, wasting diseases, and violent death. Everything bad about being alive left the jar and entered the world, which means everything good was left behind, including happiness, love, and life. The story goes that the gods, especially Zeus, wanted to punish Prometheus for stealing fire and giving it to humans. So far, so good. But why did the gods feel so strongly about Pandora opening this jar? Now, this is quite a bleak tale, and there's no denying that it paints humanity in a bad light, suggesting that we are all born into suffering and destined for misery. The only thing left in the jar was hope, a tiny spark in the darkness that enables us to endure our trials and tribulations. However, the original word clearly referred to a jar, which has a much deeper meaning. Some scholars think that Pandora wasn't entirely to blame for what happened. This is similar to the biblical story of Adam and Eve, where the serpent tempted Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. But what did Pandora actually do? She simply opened a jar. But why? And who can blame her? Imagine you're in a dark room with nothing in it except a single jar, but perhaps she saved humanity too. Think about it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button below to stay up to date with all things mythology.